All right, we're talking about one of my favorite topics today, which is raw milk. And just to get the bias on my particular position out, first and foremost, we have goats and we milk them. We do a very radical thing every morning. We go out and we milk our goats, and then we drink the milk from our goats. So somebody's going to label me a rogue, but that's what I do. I milk goats and I drink milk out of my goat. Now, recently, the controversy has come to Florida because the Florida Department of Health, as well as the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, have come out saying that raw milk has made some people sick. In this press release from the Department of Health in Florida, they say that there has been 21 cases since January 24th, 2025, including 6 children under the age of 10 and 7 hospitalizations linked to consumption of raw milk from a particular farm on the east coast of Florida. Keeley Farms Dairy. We're going to talk about that in a second. We've heard some word that what the state may be saying is not entirely true, as is probably not shocking to a lot of people who follow food news or, frankly, my podcast, because I have learned, not just over the last few years, but really dating back to a moment in my own TV reporting career where I regurgitated a press release from the government and found out that it was just one side of the story, that the doctor actually that they were coming after, this was in the Seattle area, had a totally different side. I talked to his patients and it was completely the opposite of what the Department of Health was telling us. But I was a naive reporter and I repeated what the government was saying. I have Pam Lunn waiting to come in to talk about raw milk. She runs and owns the Dancing Goat Dairy in Tampa. And one thing I just want to say before I even bring her in to discuss this, she knows a lot about the raw milk world in Florida and raw milk in general. I just want to discuss real fast my thoughts on the reaction to raw milk, particularly when the government says that there has been foodborne illness related to it. Number one, the government, the media, public safety officials, they treat raw milk differently than basically every other food item whenever there's a suspicion of illness. Because why? You take a guess, but I will say this. It's pretty obvious looking at the last few months that if you pick up any press release or any news article about a foodborne illness recall, they will tell you what food it was that was recalled. They'll tell you what the bacteria was they're concerned about. They'll tell you about the cases. But I never see in spinach recalls, tomato recalls, baby formula recalls. Recently, I discussed a recall of chicken fettuccine Alfredo from Kroger. In these recalls, you do not see the public health officials or the media add the extra layer of how stupid are these people for consuming these products. So raw milk is handled differently because there is almost always a health official, a politician that is questioning the intelligence and the judgment of the people that consume these particular raw dairy products, whereas they do not do that with other foodborne illness stories. That's one reason that to me is very obvious. There's something about raw milk that is different in its treatment from the government and the media. Secondly, they often will tell you that raw milk is the same as pasteurized milk, that there's no nutritional difference, and that there's just no reason for us to consume raw milk. This is factually inaccurate. I took chemistry in 10th grade. I learned from my professor that when you boil something, it changes the nature of what you boiled. That's why when you go to the store and you see roasted nuts, you will also see a label that says raw nuts, raw almonds, roasted almonds. The reason that that's labeled that way is because some people want the nutritional benefits of the raw almonds and they don't want roasted almonds because high temperature processing affects the nature of the products, the proteins, the enzymes, the nutritional content. There's a reason that milk that's ultra pasteurized and homogenized often says fortified. That's because nutrition is added back into the milk. So those of us who like raw milk, who drink milk out of their goats like I do, we like it for the nutritional content. We know the science behind it. We don't know too little. We know too much. And it's often purported that we know too little. We actually know too much. They also often pinpoint this as some kind of political movement. We're rogue isolationists, anti-establishment, anti-government. And honestly, the health movement over the last few decades has swung from being labeled far left to now far right. People in the 80s and 90s, or maybe the 70s, they were hippies, they were liberals, right? Now we're anti-establishment conservatives, we're far right-wing extremists. This is a incorrect description of those of us who are appreciative of being able to consume raw milk. The one thing that might combine us or unite us politically is that we believe we should have the right to choose what we put in our own bodies, and what we should be able to buy from our neighbor who's a farmer. If you can go into a grocery store and buy ultra processed food, which will give you cancer or heart disease in a couple of, decades or less, then I should be able to make the choice to go to my neighbor or to go out to my barn and consume the milk from my own animal. I don't think any of us are sitting here saying that we want you, the person who has heart disease, to necessarily change your behavior. You want to go to the grocery store. I just saw 50% of grocery store items now are ultra processed foods. Look at the United States of America. What is you're most likely to die of heart disease? If our government messaging has gotten us anywhere, it's that we're one of the sickest and fattest countries on the face of the earth. And so I'm not sitting here saying that I want to necessarily restrict your right to go get your pizza that's made with the material in my yoga mat. I'm just saying I should be able to go outside and drink my milk, or if my neighbor is producing milk, she's got some extra from her cow, I should be able to buy it. Okay. We know too much, not too little. We want the consumer to be able to have the right to choose. It is not the same as pasteurized milk. That is wrong. There are doctors and scientists who will give you a lot of detail on that. And it's funny because when you read news articles, you'll see experts say. What experts say? I often say that about the media. Experts say. I used to say that. Experts say. What experts? There are a lot of experts out there who are medicine trained, MDs, who believe that raw milk offers great health benefits. And so it's not just experts say that you shouldn't drink raw milk. Okay? It's handled differently by the government and by the media. Me personally, I don't know what's going to happen when we're 20 years out. If Washington State, for instance, where I moved from, you can buy it for human consumption. In Florida, you can only buy it for pet consumption. Some people like it one way, some people like it the other way. I don't know where we're headed with raw milk, and it may seem silly to a lot of people on the outside. Why do I even care? To me, it is of utmost importance that a person be able to speak, which is why I focused on the First Amendment for so long on this podcast, and be able to feed their family. These are two basic fundamental rights given to us by God, not given to us by the government. It should be protected by the government, but they do not give us these rights. And so I talk about this because, well, yes, I have a personal vested interest in the fact that I drink raw milk from my goat. I don't want the government coming onto my property and telling me that I can't do that, or buy from my neighbor, for instance. But also, I think it is a basic fundamental right that, if trampled upon, leads to far worse precedent on human rights for those of us in the United States of America. Okay? That's what I think. I'm going to tell you real fast about my favorite daily green pasture cod liver butter oil blend, which is what I have been taking for almost 12, 13 years. Used to get cavities all the time, and switched over to green pasture. If you go to greenpasture.org, promo code Allison, you'll get your 10% off. I started taking their fermented cod liver concentrated butter oil blend. This is not a supplement. This is a food. It is packed with vitamin D, A, and K, along with great omega-3s. It is a fermented cod liver oil that is also blended with a high concentrated butter oil, so that the two products help your body absorb all of it. If you only take a fish oil or only take a butter oil, you wouldn't get as much out of either as if you were to put both together. So I used to get cavities all the time. I was probably vitamin D deficient. Of course, you need vitamin K in order to absorb vitamin D. And this made a world of change for me. So I can't recommend it enough. It's great for all kinds of other stuff that you might be dealing with. But I personally think for dental health, you can't go wrong with this. Shop fermented cod liver oil, concentrated butter oil blend, greenpasture.org, 10% off with promo code Allison. Okay. All right. So we're going to bring Pam Lunn in because she has been willing to come on and talk about this particular issue. Pam, why don't we just start with what the Department of Health is saying first? And then we can talk about the rest. So, according to the press release, they are saying that Keeley Farms in near New Smyrna, so near Daytona Beach, has had milk that they are blaming for 21 cases since January of E. coli and Campylobacter. And I have a hard time just taking the government's word for it on the surface, because there have been so many farmers who have been accused of one or another thing from food safety standpoint, who when they fight back, you find out the government really had not confirmed what they said they were talking about. So I don't know. I don't know. Where do you stand on this?
Oh, well, I'm very surprised that there's no stop sale that has started. If the Department of Health is going to issue something like that, why are they not stopping her from selling milk at this moment in time until everything gets settled? I'm very surprised at that. Since they do say this is going back until January, I do know there had been some complaints on the list about different issues with Keeley Farms, but it wasn't that great. There's always a complaint about somebody. Everybody has a problem with somebody else at some point in time. But if they're going to do this, I was in contact with Keeley this morning, Keeley Farms, and asking them how things were going. Apparently, the Department of Health has never even contacted them. The only way they found out about this was through a reporter who called them and advised them that the media release had been in from the Department of Health. So it's always kind of strange. And another thing that I think we need to take into consideration, and I'm not saying people are saying they got sick and they really didn't get sick, but did they get sick and eat spinach and wash it down with milk and it really was the spinach or was it the milk? And a lot of people, we know how it is when someone is down, everybody will jump on the bandwagon to kick them while they're down. And are there other people coming forward saying that they got sick when they really weren't sick? So I wonder about that. Do we have definitive cases of this? Is it documented? Or are they just saying it's 21 people said they got sick?
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, it's not it's just reports. Yeah, they're taking consumer reports, and as you said, who knows? I mean, you don't know in the handling process what's going on. Like I said before, you came on, you know, the food recalls over the last just few years, it seems like the government lets you know about it. Like you said, they'll issue the recall, let you know where it came from. This was very weird because at the beginning, they weren't even telling us what farm it came from. As you said, there's no stop sale. So that's also very odd. But they have added these extra sound bites, you know, in their press releases, like the Department of Agriculture talking to the news media about how Florida's got plenty pasteurized dairy. There's no reason for you to drink raw milk. And it becomes this added layer of nanny boo boo to tell people what they should or should not be doing. Now, I know in Florida, it's pet consumption only. You put your labels on your dairy for pet consumption
Correct.
only. People choose how they're going to use it. That's not in your control. I personally think that I've had lawyers on before that have said the government will tell you, yeah, you can do whatever you want with, you know, drink raw milk. I guess you can do it. But what they do is they just limit the farmer's ability to sell it to you. So you want to get a particular product, they'll say, yeah, sure, of course, it's America. You can do what you want. But you can't really, because they limit the farmer's ability to do so. You have some ideas about how to turn Florida into a human consumption state, and we'll talk about that in a second. But when it comes to these raw milk illness related media moments, I guess, or press release moments, I'm curious if you notice any of the same things that I do about how it's handled.
Yes, I'm really upset about it. I heard the thing on Wilt Simpson, our ag commissioner. I saw a clip on him this morning saying drink pasteurized milk. I'm very surprised at that because the Surgeon General for Florida has all but come out pro for raw milk. In that, there's a lot of things that I have been pushing. I'm kind of the pain in the butt for them, and don't look at my messy office behind me. But I'm kind of the pain in the butt for the Department of Agriculture. I have been pushing for the last 7 years for a lot of changes, and it's stuff to make it safer for everybody. I'm not necessarily saying that we want human consumption, but when are they ever going to consider us for human consumption if we cannot produce a stellar pet product? And that's what I think we need to do to hit top shelf on that, and then we can go for human consumption. I want to have veterinary inspections on the animals at least twice a year, full zoonotic testing of all lactating animals, clean, dry, and closed milking facility. Of course, a roof over for cows, but for the goats, we have an enclosed, purpose-built facility. Hot and cold running water adjacent to the facility because you don't want people waiting until, hey, they get milked in the morning, wait until this evening, and we'll clean the machine then. Nah, that doesn't work. We got to have it so things can be done immediately. We have to do the proper cooling protocol on that, and new disposable BPA free containers for everything out the door. And last but not least, we need a competency exam. There's a lot of people that talk good raw milk, but they haven't a clue what they're doing. I get some of these people, and am I talking too much? But
Yeah, no, keep going.
okay, in 2020, when we thought there was never going to be another egg on the shelf, and we thought there was never going to be another gallon of milk, people started buying goats and started buying cows and putting them in their backyard, and they hadn't a clue about what they were doing, but they were going to have their raw milk, and they were going to have milk, and so they didn't have to go without it. And a lot of those people came to me, and I said, well, are you testing the cows? Are you testing the goats? And you know how adamant I am on testing because I've been through it with you. But they test for what? Well, if you're looking at me and telling me test for what, then you don't know what you're doing because you haven't researched it. There are silent diseases in goats and in cows that can pass through. But if you're testing for that, you are preventing that. We test here for everything, and we have from day one. My children were raised on the milk. I drink it every day today, prefer it. Will not drink raw milk. In fact, when I take my vacations up north, I haul my cooler of milk with me because I
You
can't
will
get it.
not drink pasteurized milk. You said you won't drink raw milk. You mean you
I
won't
mean, I
drink
won't drink pasteurized milk. That's all I drink is raw milk. I do not believe in the pasteurized milk. I just don't. I think you're drinking chalk water.
hmm Okay, Pam. So I want to bring your attention over to Locals, AlisonMorrow.locals.com, or you can join my editorial board. It's a great way to support the show. $5 a month, and you get access to all the farm videos too. It's all in one place instead of subscribing to both YouTube channels that I have. Blah blah blah. Go to Locals, AlisonMorrow.locals.com. Okay, so KBAZ brings up a good point, and it's a place where I think Pam and I probably disagree more on this topic than anything else because we're in agreement on a lot. Is the government's role in regulating, well, any food product really, but in particular raw milk. Okay, there are some people who really like the pet food consumption policy here in Florida because it keeps the government off their back. I thought for a long time before I moved here that they didn't like it, but I found out, oh no, there are people that really they do like it. They just don't want the government on coming and telling them what they have to do. I was unaware of that, so now I understand that a little bit better. KBAZ, bacteria contaminated raw milk is the problem, not just that it is raw milk. Anyone with microbiology experience understands that. It can be a risk if the contamination are human pathogens. The question is whether you want government agencies to limit that risk or not. If the dairy actually tested the raw milk for bacteria prior to distribution, it would help, but it's probably not feasible. The health department would not be naming the source if they haven't actually tested samples of the milk. And I'm kind of wondering if that's true, if that has not happened. Comparing those samples from the sick individual stool cultures is possible. Anyone drinking the milk is their choice and would presume they know all that it is a risk, and that your suggestions are a form of regulation, cleaning competency, testing the animal's pathogens, of course. So just recognizing that that's what it is. My concern, you and I agree, first off, that the consumer ultimately is the one that, really should just know their farmer. I think that getting outside the grocery store and meeting the people who produce your beef, milk, eggs, whatever it is a really good thing to do. Ask the questions, learn about it. It's not just a valuable relationship, but from an education standpoint, you'll learn a lot. And it's of great, I think, value to have the relationship with the person that produces your food. It actually just makes the food taste better, I personally think. Uh, whether those people, though, you know, whether those people tell you as a new consumer what you need to know, that we don't know, right? I mean, maybe there are some people that are upstanding and other people that are not going to tell you the truth. Pam wants the government to do more for, uh, I guess, regulating honesty in that regard, and what the farms would look like. I worry about that. For instance, your idea about having like a veterinarian come out twice a year. Okay, well, what's a vet going to tell me that I have to do with my animals? Most conventional vets, I think, are far too dependent on antibiotics, for instance, and vaccinations. I don't want a vet coming out twice a year and telling me that I have to treat my animal the way that my customers don't want it treated, the way I don't want it treated. So how do you prevent that? Because it feels like a slippery slope once you tell the government that they can control what safe milk looks like. I mean, look at what pasteurized, homogenized milk looks like now. Like what a lot of, there are many, many, frankly, Pam, big conventional dairies. I, I wouldn't want to have a cow there. The pasteurization has allowed them to have, circumstances in which I would not want my cow to live. And so, I just, that's the regulated dairy. That's where government regulation got us. Government regulation got us a country where people are very fat and sick, where cancer is rampant, where high blood pressure and heart disease is rampant. So why do I want to listen to their advice?
Well, I think the main thing about the veterinary inspections is just to make sure that the animals are healthy. I know that you don't like the antibiotics and all of that, and I don't either. Antibiotics is our last resort effort to save a life. We are very holistic here, and our first line of defense is holistic measures for everything that we do here, and it is only for a last resort measure do I go to antibiotics. And I think not many people have dove into it to the point that I have. When the people have no clue and you ask them if they're testing, they don't know about the test, they don't know about meds withdrawal, they don't know about anything, and I want to have a competency exam, but we want to have healthy animals to begin with before they give that milk. It doesn't matter how much milk you're getting from that animal. If it's not healthy, it's not saleable, and it's not doing you any good as a dairy. I did contact the farm, Keeley Farms, this morning. I did speak with her. And during that period of time, since January, there's been over 70,000 gallons of milk out the door. 24 cases in 70,000 gallons. That's scary. That's just downright scary that they have isolated 24. And I think, the person on there that you just quoted, they talked about testing each batch. That just gets to be, it's not feasible at all.
What is scary? What is scary about that? Can you elaborate on what you meant by that? It's scary that there's 20 cases in 70,000 gallons.
How are they isolating these cases? Why are there not more cases out there? If it's
Okay,
70,000 gallons,
that it doesn't make sense. Is that what you're saying? It's scary.
It doesn't make sense at all. It does not make sense that 70,000 gallons have gone out the door. There's only 24 cases.
Yeah, I don't know.
When you sell a batch, let's say that you're getting 100 gallons a day, and you're selling that 100 gallons a day, and that's one big batch. How do you get Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, following Monday, as you're going to have problems with it, and you didn't have it every day? It just seems like that if there's problems like that, it should have happened more.
I want to bring you to an article written by my old newsroom, ABC Action News in Tampa, Florida. The title is "It's Crestfallen, Experts Alarmed by Raw Milk Illnesses in Florida." Now, as I said at the beginning, experts alarmed. What experts? Who are you talking about? This is often in headlines. Experts say, I used to say this, experts, because we regurgitate the press releases from the government in these cases. I did it myself. I was naive. I took their word for it. I thought they really were trying to protect us. I didn't think they lied. I have changed my opinion, not just opinion. I know for a fact that the way I used to think was wrong. And now being much more skeptical and asking more questions is the right way to go, because everybody has an opinion. And it's not true that all experts are alarmed by raw milk illnesses in Florida. Okay. Not in the way they're talking about, because the way they discuss the alarm is that people are drinking raw milk at all. It's not just the foodborne illness that's alarming them. They're anti raw milk, and they're alarmed, and their public health expert that they have in here is alarmed that people are even drinking raw milk. So crestfallen, this quote that they have, that means sad. In case I actually looked it up just to make sure I was right about it. They say that it has renewed debate over a controversial political movement that is growing behind raw unpasteurized milk. So it is a political movement. As I said, left, right, and in between. The reality is drinking raw milk or using cloth diapers or vinegar to clean your house was considered a hippie left-wing act 30 years ago. Now it's considered a right-wing extremist act. The politics behind this, if there's anything that unites all of us in the raw milk world, is that we just believe that we should be able to choose what we put in our own bodies. If you want to go to the grocery store and you want to buy bread that has yoga mat material in it, go for it. You want to buy something that's going to give you heart disease or cancer in the next couple of years, go for it. I just want to be able to go next door to my neighbor and buy milk from her cow, or go out to my own barn and milk my own cow. I think I said gal, which is a combination of a cow and a goat. I might be breeding those later. Please come look and see. All right. They also say that
I'm going to help you with those.
yeah. Okay. They say that that it's crestfallen. Here's the quote. Keith Schneider, a food safety professor at the University of Florida. Okay. According to Schneider, the science is clear. Pasteurization, the process of heating milk to kill harmful bacteria, is essential. Okay, one guy, Keith Schneider, says that. There are a lot of other people in the medical and science world that would say that the process of ultra pasteurizing, homogenizing milk is harmful and inflammatory for the body, and that raw milk preserves the integrity of the food. Just like if you eat a raw almond, why would you eat a raw almond? Or if you eat raw spinach, which, by the way, is one thing that has been recalled over the years for E. coli, but rarely do you hear a public health official tell you that you should stop being so stupid and eating raw spinach. Baby formula, same thing, right? So there's this added layer of how dumb you are for doing this. And then this is my favorite part. The quote is, "I'm speculating here because I have no data." Okay.
Exactly.
Shut up. You know what I mean? Shut up. Like, because if you have no data and you are a, food safety, quote, expert, food safety professor at the University of Florida, and you have no data, then, are you a scientist? Anyway. Okay. I think people have just forgotten what it used to be like. Same thing with the measles vaccination. It's going to take a big measles outbreak for people to start trusting measles vaccines or rubella or the other things that we have ostensibly wiped out to start coming back. Basically saying, we're all going to just have to have this massive outbreak of sick people from raw milk to see, hey, this is why we pasteurize in the first place. Pam, shall we give people just a quick history lesson on why pasteurization was, became the modus operandi in dairies during the industrial age? Would you like to tell people a little bit about that?
Well, sure. In the cities, people were drinking beer more than water because they did not have safe water supplies. And beside the is it a brewery, distillery for beer? I'm not a drinker. They would have the dairies, and they would give the swill from the dairy or from the distillery or brewery to the cows, and that's what they drank. Well, guess what? Or that's what they ate. Then they would have the milkmaids there, and they would be milking. Well, they tried to say that the spread of tuberculosis came from the cows, when it actually came from, there were no milk machines back then in the 1800s. There was, you couldn't do closed milking. So they were leaning over as I'm telling you, I'm showing you, they were leaning over the bucket as they were milking, and they were breathing over the bucket, and those tuberculosis germs which the milkmaids may have had the tuberculosis got into the milk, and then they tried to say it was the cows that were spreading it, not the milkmaids, when the milkmaids were the ones that came down with all the tuberculosis. And that's how pasteurization started. They found out if they pasteurize that milk, then the spread of tuberculosis is down. Well, we don't have too many milkmaids around today that have tuberculosis, so we're pretty good.
Well, the other thing to point out to people too is that the idea would be if you had an animal living the way it did, in this article they do kind of make it sound like we all want to just go back to the way things were in like 500 BC, which there probably were benefits to living back then compared to industrialized food now. But the reality is, yeah, we believe that if an animal is raised in an appropriate environment where proper nutrition and hygiene is practiced, then raw milk is a very safe product. Let me give you another example. Okay, I'm not going to live in a house with mold and a bunch of like dust flying everywhere and then just get a air purifier and say, okay, the problem is that I didn't have an air purifier. No, the problem was that my house has issues. I need to clean up my house. The air purifier is just a crutch. If you have a cow or a goat that's out in an environment that is biologically appropriate for the animal, and you're practicing, clean, hygienic milking, then you will have a very healthy product. There just is never any discussion about this when the media or the government discusses it. There's very little nuance to the topic where they say that there is value to raw milk. It just makes it sound like it's all exactly the same as pasteurized milk. Why do we even bother? I mean, we're just putting ourselves at risk for no reason. This is just factually inaccurate. And this is Wilton Simpson, as you mentioned, Florida Agricultural Commissioner, saying that Florida's pasteurized milk supply is safe, nutritious, and closely controlled from the farm to your local grocery store. There have been no reported illnesses from pasteurized milk products in Florida, so Floridians should continue to buy and enjoy nutritious, wholesome dairy products from Florida farmers. Okay, my pushback on this is, personally, just from the science and the doctors that I have listened to, that your autoimmune issues from ultra pasteurized homogenized milk, such as lactose intolerance or eczema or other allergies, is not called or considered to be an illness. They're talking about E. coli. We look at pasteurized milk and say that it's not as good for us. Frankly, I would drink water before I would want to be on a supply of ultra pasteurized homogenized milk. So I think it does cause illness, but it doesn't qualify as illness in their opinion, because the illness they're talking about is E. coli or Campylobacter, Listeria. But to say it never causes illness, I think that's also factually inaccurate. They just don't consider eczema or autoimmune issues, lactose intolerance, to be an illness. All right, and then they go on to talking about the Raw Milk Institute and Kennedy. So, puts us in the RFK camp, which, the media always kind of throws out there as add a little bit of spice and controversy to it. Despite the political endorsements, public health officials are holding the line. The FDA and CDC continue to emphasize that raw milk remains especially dangerous for vulnerable populations. And as this is the best. Okay, this line. As the national conversation continues, Florida health leaders are urging caution over what they say is a nostalgic and potentially hazardous return to the past. And this is what I've said it before, but this is what I think really is such a misunderstanding about it. And often those of us who opt out of technology and science advancements, we're called nostalgic. We just want a butcher block table and an Instagram account, and we want to wear a long dress with a cow outside just so that we can feel like we're living like our great-great-grandparents. They never mention that it has nothing to do with nostalgia. It has everything to do with actual health and science-based facts. It's not just like we just want to live like our great-grandparents because we have nostalgia. We just think that it's healthier. Not just think it. We believe there is research and science out there to actually support that. And so the idea that we all just want to live like Neanderthals, man, that is just such a misunderstanding. I wish I still, in some cases, worked in this newsroom or other newsrooms. I mean, just to be able to give them a different perspective on how this is covered, because my guess is that they don't drink or know anyone who drinks raw milk. They don't know anyone who farms. They don't know anything about this. And just like I did a long time ago, they assume that the government is just telling them the facts and nothing but the facts and the whole story when they're not getting the whole story. So anyway, anything I said, Pam, that you would like to discuss?
Well, gosh, I don't know. You pretty well covered it there. There's something to be said about the people that were drinking raw milk years and years ago. My mother passed away at 96 years old. And of course, she drank the raw milk the last 4 years of her life when she lived with me. And she always said, "Oh, gee, this tastes like mommy's milk." Mommy was her grandmother that milked a cow all the time, and so did her mom. Uh, Both sides of my family goes into the 90s. I was not raised on raw milk. We didn't have that. I can remember the milkman delivering milk. I'm not that old that I can remember him delivering milk to the front door. And then later on, I was raised on the store bought milk right there. But when I found this 25 years ago, I was showing goats, and I got milk from the most dangerous places you probably could get it. They were milking it at shows, no filtering, no nothing, putting it into a gallon jug so I could take it home and freeze it, and I could have raw milk when I got home. Probably could have been the most tainted and the most complicated pathogens in there possible, but I never got sick, and nor did the kids, so we shared with it. But we did raise our children on raw milk, and I had very healthy children. My son, rock climber extraordinaire now, but he has done quite a bit and very much an athlete, and he won't drink any milk unless it's my raw milk. And or we've been hunting for him some up in Salt Lake City now. If you're up there, contact me.
Pam, somebody on Local's Critical Thought, thank you for this, updated me on Keeley Farms, posted this on her Facebook page. I don't know if you've seen it, but Keeley Farms Dairy has not been informed of any immediate investigation by the Florida Department of Health and will reach out to their agency. We were not contacted by the Department of Health prior to or regarding their statement this morning. The Florida Department of Health has not informed Keeley Farms of any investigation or administrative action. The Department of Health has not indicated to Keeley Farms that it committed any wrongdoing, so its press release has blindsided us. And that is just weird. It is just weird. If you care about public safety, why wouldn't you tell the farm that what they're doing is putting people at risk? Why wouldn't you keep them from selling any more milk? The whole thing is just weird. We need more questions asked about this. It just doesn't make sense.
This does not put together that there's not a stop sale. This is just absolutely unreal. There's no stop sale.
So I don't buy it. I mean,
You know what?
Yeah, go ahead, Pam.
When you're mentioning about the experts, who are the experts? Does this guy know about raw milk? You get so many people and I'll tell you a little thing that comes to me. I get people all the time that want to come and see our milking procedure, see if we're doing things right. And I'll say, "Well, are you dairy?" And, "Well, no, but I've watched the documentaries." And, "Well, do you have any dairy experience?" "Well, no, but I've read a lot about it." I said, "So you watched the three F's, food, ink, Farmageddon, and fresh. And did you play Farmville too to become an expert?" And I'm sorry, I'm not demeaning people, but so many people seem to think they know everything, that they're the know all, end all, to it all, and they don't. They haven't a clue. And even some of the new people that are into milk, some are very good, but some of them have not a clue. And that's why we need to have some type of regulation, some type of competency exam when you get that permit. Do you know? And I put this on my statement on the Dancing Goat Facebook page today. When you get a permit for raw milk, you pay $40, and higher ton producers do pay quite a bit more, but you pay $40 and you have your label approved, and that is it. And that is not enough. We need competent people out there selling the raw milk.
Okay, on that note, I will just show an opinion about that. Let's go back to the chat. Okay, no, this is DMSR. No to any mandatory testing from anyone at any time. If they want to make a tested labeling program and put it on those who choose to participate, so be it. Every person is able to buy food from whoever they choose. I decide if I want tested goods, not any mandate. What do you think about that, Pam? Why not just have create a program that the farm can sign up for and then advertise it as such? Look, our milk is tested. We are part of this program. And then you could charge a little more money for it. And the consumers know that's out there and they can choose to buy from you instead of forcing it on people.
Well, that is what I said in my statement this morning, that this is an opportunity for the raw milk producers. We can gather together, form a coalition, and we can self-regulate ourselves. If the state isn't going to do it, then why can't we do it ourselves and know what and try to guide the new people into the correct procedures and to self-regulate and inspect each other.
All right. One quick commercial break. In case they outlaw raw milk, you will probably only want to drink water or wine. So Pam appreciates a good glass of wine. ALISONWinePromo.com. You get 6 bottles every 3 months if you join my club. They're all hand selected for the products that I like to consume. We're talking about raw milk today. I like the raw milk of wine, I guess. I like the clean products where they don't add a bunch of the stuff that's in grocery store wines, the fillers, the dyes, and also production techniques, growing techniques for the grapes that reflect the kind of farming I like. Small family farms, vineyards that are at very high elevations where there's not a lot of pesticide use in the area, vineyards that have been around for 5 generations, over 200 years, where they're still hand picking the grapes. The wines are delicious. They are a great product, even if they weren't produced in such a high value way. You will not be disappointed. Again, you sign up for the club. You will always have 6 bottles every 3 months. You don't have to worry about your grandma's birthday. You don't have to worry about that little kid who won't go to sleep and you're like, man, I just need that glass of wine. so go join the wine club and help me get a babysitter at ALISONWinePromo.com. Okay, so Pam, let me go back also to the locals chat too. What are the regulations for pasteurized milk? I'm curious, or maybe a better question would be, what are regulations in other states that you've come across for unpasteurized milk that you would think would be valuable here? So maybe both questions. I mean, what do they do for pasteurized milk before it can be sold to the public? And what have you seen for other raw milk states where you can sell for human consumption that they require those people to sell?
Well, I was quite surprised a few years ago. Anybody knows me knows I am from West Virginia. Let's go Mountaineers. Uh, and a few years ago, I had spoken with some people in the Department of Agriculture, and they were considering allowing raw milk. At that point in time, you couldn't even sell raw milk for soap making. You couldn't sell raw milk, period, not pet consumption, nothing. And I thought they were going to go the Florida route with pet consumption only, but they flipped over and they ended up, I believe it's a herd share, but you have to purchase straight from the farm. And that gets people there. They get to know their farmer, and you know that'll be what I'll say the most. Know your farmer, know your farmer, know your farmer. Know your farmer is competent, not that they talk good raw milk. So that's one state that I know personally and can do it. I believe raw milk is sold in Utah. My son's out there, and I've been out there a couple of times, but it wasn't convenient for us to go get it. But I don't know a lot of the states. Florida is it was about 10 years, one of 10 states that allowed pet consumption only. Quite a few of those states have rolled over to human consumption at this point in time. I haven't followed on how many states, but I do know that I think that if we could gather together as a coalition and have people as certified raw milk producers, we could pull something together like that. It would give a level of safety to the milk, as well as a level of confidence for the purchasers. Now, I'm not saying for human consumption, because I do have to sell for pet consumption only, and I'm very careful about that. And people say, "Oh, well, the milk tastes good." I say, "Oh, please don't tell me that. I can't sell that. I don't want to engage in conversation of human consumption of milk, except for ourselves and our family, and that is legal for us to do. But we want to be very careful that we don't kill raw milk in this process, but we use it as an opportunity because of these issues to create a better environment for everybody."
Why do you think raw milk gets such a bullseye on its back compared to every other food out there? I have my theories on it. I think there's both a philosophical and a spiritual reason, but I'm just curious what you think about that. Why does raw milk have such a target on its back?
I just don't know. I really don't. It's raw because you say raw. One man had sent me a email years ago about, "I really don't like you using raw milk. Why don't you just say whole milk, not raw milk?" So that was part of it. But I mean, if there's any producers on here, raw milk producers in Florida, that want to talk to me, we're going to try to put together a coalition. Please get in touch with me so we can get this together. And we need to, and like I said, this is an opportunity. We can turn this problem into a great opportunity for raw milk in Florida to turn around everything, and we can make people confident in it for their puppies, of course.
So you don't want it to be sold for human consumption?
If we can't, right now, we're not producing a stellar pet product across the board. There are too many people out there that are selling milk that have no clue what they're doing. They're not testing. They're not doing it. Until we have people that are following the testing rules. Okay, there's several silent diseases, and I'll just use goats because I don't know cows as well as I know goats. You've got Yonis. Yonis is a wasting disease, and it'll turn into Crohn's in humans if you start drinking milk with Yonis. Yonis is generally brought over to goats when they've been housed with cows, and cows are usually the main animal that will have Yonis. Then you have CL, caseous lymphonitis. Caseous lymphonitis is abscesses. Once you have one, and you'll find caseous, I show everything. The caseous lymphonitis will come out on the neck when it's on the lymphatic system. When you start getting external abscesses of caseous lymphonitis, it actually has started in the lungs. It has started in the respiratory system. You've gotten your abscesses in the respiratory system. It will pass through. It will go to the mammary system. So what you're doing, you're taking that milk that has been exposed to this caseous lymphonitis, you're milking it and you're drinking it, and it can pass to humans. So that caseous lymphonitis is not good stuff. And we test for everything like that. And also, there's another disease, CAE, caprine arthritic encephalomyelitis. And the CAE is not zoonotic. The Yonis and the CL is zoonotic, but CAE is not zoonotic, but we still test for that. And I think most people do for that. There's Q fever. I don't know of a case of Q fever since I have started in Florida. Used to be when we showed goats, we had to test them for TB, tuberculosis. You'd put the little needle in, 72 hours later, you'd check the spot, and the vet would have to check the spot. And they dispensed with that about 15, 20 years ago because there had not been a case of tuberculosis in goats for probably 40 years in Florida. And when you talk about the hippies, going back to nostalgia, I was that flower child of the 70s, turned corporate refugee, and I guess I'm back to the flower child of the farm.
Okay, Pam, another comment over on Rumble from Linus. I want no government involvement in my food choices. The FDA has proven they are captured and cannot possibly give accurate and unbiased information. And I think this really is a fair point to bring up when you start saying we want to involve the government in our food system because, okay, well, first off, we also have historically an example of what kind of food system you get when you've got the FDA and the CDC in charge, and it doesn't look very pretty over here in the United States. But the second thing is that, yes, if there's big food money lobbying and big pharma lobbying, and the rules that they're going to set are going to make it easier for the big guy and harder for the little guy, easier for the person that does the conventional way of farming, which I personally find to not be healthy. I don't want food that way. All I want is to just have a farmer that's available to buy the product that I want. If they're willing to produce it and I'm willing to buy it, why should I have to involve the government in that decision making? If it concerns me that all of a sudden they're alleging they're keeping us safe. If that were the case, you would think you would see Americans to be far healthier than they are, and Americans clearly are not very healthy. So I don't know, what has the regulation gotten us? And a lot of people really don't trust them after COVID because they were suppressing important information that could have saved people's lives, and they were deplatforming doctors and scientists that were speaking out about public health policy. And so they don't even give us the full story. So why do we want them involved in our food choices? Why shouldn't I be able to have a free transactional relationship with my neighbor?
Well, I think that when you start talking about raw milk regulations, you need raw milk people on the board regulating it. This is not something that you just get any Tom, Dick, and Harry from out in left field to come in and decide what they want to do. I think you need to get the experts in this case are the producers, and the producers that have been in this for a long time. I've got 25 years. I've got two or three of my friends that I, our sister farm. I think she was doing goats when she was in diapers, but we do have a lot of experts in the state. And if we will utilize this, we could put together an awesome, awesome coalition of certified raw milk producers.
Okay, Pam, I don't think I have a whole lot of other Oh, I do have one more question. I got a text from somebody. Okay. I would be a full-time dairy farmer in a heartbeat if I could support myself. So if I want to do it full-time the right way with the right infrastructure, how can I fund that if I'm below middle class or at middle class? It's just too basically it's so expensive to build the infrastructure. The farm loan people denied, and the USDA Ag Department couldn't help either. Even though they say women get agricultural grants, I haven't found any open yet. So that's the other thing. And we found that, okay, meat, for instance, right? You can't buy a cut of meat without it being USDA inspected. So if I want to get non-inspected meat, I buy, like, for instance, I'm getting pork next week. I bought the pig and I paid the butcher. That's how it works. So I can get all that. But there have been arguments, Thomas Massey, which is another thing, right? They'll say in media articles that, like, politicians and these officials are against raw milk. But thankfully, we at least have Thomas Massey talking about raw milk, and he has a mobile chicken coop run by solar energy when he's gone in Washington, D.C., lives in a camper. At least we have somebody, but it's not true that everybody's against it. And I think there's actually more people that are for it than even will speak up, because it's one of those things where it just becomes a lightning rod. And people are afraid of the fallout. Will they lose their jobs? Or, if they talk about it, or will they get attacked online? And people just don't have the stomach for what you and I do. I don't know why I'm still here on the internet talking about this. Anyway, I just find it interesting, that if you're somebody who wants to produce a product, like, where you only have a few animals, okay, you're not a massive dairy, which means actually you probably could keep things under control easier because you only have a few animals. But it's cost prohibitive for somebody like that to have to perform at the same infrastructure as a mass commercial farm. So how do you make it affordable for somebody who wants to just feed their neighborhood, not necessarily the entire state?
Well, we started on a shoestring, if it's possible. My first milk stands I made upstairs in my barn, and I built them myself. There are ways to do it. You don't need money to do it. We started building up our animals. I did use quite a bit of my savings from the time that I decided to start a dairy in 2002 until we were actually geared up to be a dairy in 2007, August 17th, which is just in a few days. 2007 was the day that we were first permitted, and we made our first delivery of raw milk. But it's hard to say. You have to have the will. When there's a will, there's a way. You can fund it. You don't need big bucks to do it. You start small. We started, I think, in 2008. I was still milking 17 goats and milking them twice a day, doing it by myself. Up until 2011, I did that. I got up at 3:30 in the morning, milked the goats, went to market, came home, milked the goats, went to sleep, got up the next morning, did it the same thing over again. It took years to build it. And now we do not do offsite markets anymore. After 18 years, we built the brand, and people find us and they come to us, and it's word of mouth. And generally, we sell out. I have expanded. I think we're milking 40 some goats now, 45, 48, somewhere in that neighborhood. And we're still small. And yes, 90% of the health of the animals is your management of those animals. And if you know how to manage your animals, you're going to have a good dairy. You're going to have healthy animals. And we test, as you know, and poor Allison, I've driven this home on her a little bit too much, but she understands now.
Well, okay, let me draw your attention to something else. I was planning on filing a public records request to see if I could get to the bottom of what's going on with this, raw milk press release illness controversy. So I went to the FDAC's site, and I clicked on their file a public records request, and this is what it says. The page is currently unavailable. So
Oh my goodness.
I'm going to have to call them, I guess, there is a number there, but you can't file a public records request unless it's about, I think they have concealed weapons is an option, and then it's just general request. So if it's about firearms, there's one, and if it's about anything else, there's another. And this one is currently unavailable, so you cannot file a public records request to find out what was going on. Another thing I'll just draw your attention to, Pam, which I have found to be very interesting, is that actually, I think that these moments make people more interested in raw milk, not the opposite. Now, maybe it might make the people in charge, like the media and the politicians, whatever, they might go, oh, look, they get all jazzed about it. Look, those stupid, crazy Neanderthal people that do this raw milk thing, they're so nuts. They got caught again. When will they ever learn? I hope they all die so they learn their lesson. I mean, I know they don't actually say that, but it kind of like the undertone is like, you deserve it. I guess you deserve whatever, comes to you because you're just anti-modernism and progressivism. But the first comment, which has 50 likes on Keely's page, is after she talks about not being informed by the Department of Agriculture about this investigation, how they've never said anything. The first comment is, good afternoon, I'll take 3 gallons, please. So people are lining up and saying they want more milk. I'll get some scissors and open it up that way. Sorry. Lily needs a snack. So I told her, get some scissors. She is 5 years old now. You wouldn't believe the tools that Lily is able to use. I will tell you this, if you start your kid young on certain things, they will surprise you when they turn 5 years old, all of the technical skills that they will have. Anyway, so back to what I was saying. Yeah, I just think it's interesting. I actually have another friend who said that because of this, a pediatrician sent a couple families her way. And, I just think it's fascinating that it may not do what they're thinking, which is to get people to be super scared of raw milk. I mean, maybe some people, but I think if you're scared of it, you're probably already in that world where you're not going to be convinced. And those of us who just think it has an unfair bullseye on its back, ideological bullseye on its back, it just makes us dig our heels in even more. I'm just, it can reconfirms for me that there's a lot of ignorance around the issue, that there are people who just do not know what they're talking about in the political, public health, media world. I know what that's like. I was somebody who never knew what she was talking about. A lot of this stuff 10, 15 years ago when I was in the news business. So I have empathy for that. And I did reach out to my old news station and said, hey, I'm happy to talk on background with somebody if they would like to about why people like myself are advocates of raw milk. So, trying to do our part to just educate and not necessarily be belligerent about it. My theory I asked you why do you think raw milk has a bullseye on its back? And I have a theory about that. I personally think it is a reflection of this pride, this hubris that people have, that it's almost like this man is God complex, that whatever we've given you technology wise, advancement wise is so important. It is such a gift.
These chocolate chips are white.
Wow, that's because it's white chocolate. Okay, so anyway, so it's this idea that whatever we humans have come up with that is advancement or modernism, that it must be good for you. And if you reject us, it's like rejecting God. It's this idea that like we know what's best for you. And if you don't do what we say, then you're just rejecting intelligence, progress, like a kid who won't eat their broccoli or something. And I think there is this sense that we humans have made things so much better. How could you possibly want to go back to the way it used to be before we had all this science and all this technology, which has given people this sense that they can really play God? And I do think that's a spiritual side to it too. I was talking to another friend about it, and she was saying she thinks because milk is such an innocent product, like it reminds us of being newborns, innocent, at just the beginning of where God started it all, and that there's a spiritual war against it because of what it represents to those who are, I guess, are of the darkness, if you will, people who are working for the side of evil. And I think she might be right about that too, that there's just a spiritual innocence about milk and about our mother's milk and coming out of straight out of an animal. And for some people, that's just so dirty because they don't live in the light. And I think there's probably some truth to that too. So
A lot of, I will say, a lot of times on my private messages, I get the vegans, and I start getting hate mail every now and then. It doesn't bother me. You can send all you want, but I'll get the hate mail of, what are you doing with your baby animals? Milk is for baby animals, not for people. And I'm not selling it that way, but I still get this nasty hate mail from the vegans. I think that this issue may open the door for a new wave of hate mail coming into me.
What, this interview?
No. The issue of the raw milk problems.
Okay, let's see. I'm just looking through. Yeah, junk foods are pushed every minute on commercial TV, or drugs. You know, how many minutes do you have to wait for a drug commercial to come up?
And when in the past was it ask your doctor about this drug, ask your doctor about that drug? Are you diagnosing yourself?
Right, that too. Well, and unfortunately, a lot of doctors are misinformed about all these drugs too. But okay, Katie Kane, dairy lobby. They don't want people to taste what real milk tastes like. Pam might not want to weigh on this. I agree. I think there's a lot of money in big food, and I think that they lobby the government, and that's why I don't like the government being involved, because they're just going to do what the big money wants them to do, and I'm never going to be the big money. Okay.
I did the numbers a few years ago on how much raw milk was being. Yep, haters gonna hate. I saw that. On how much raw milk was being sold in the state of Florida. And we are taking millions of dollars away from the pasteurized milk industry. And I suspect they may be behind they may be the naysayers of the industry a lot, because they do not want the raw milk people to succeed and take away part of their business, because we are taking a cut of their business. There's millions of dollars going into raw milk in this state through purchasing every year. And that's millions of dollars that would be in this conventional milk pocket that is moving over to the raw milk side. And that's got to hurt the conventional industry at some point.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, Pam, any final thoughts, questions, call to action? Pam is of the Dancing Goat Farm in Tampa, Florida, and you can go check her out. She allows farm visits. So if you want to go see what she does, go check her out. Pam, any final words?
No, I do them through Airbnb. I don't have insurance for private farm visits.
Okay, go Airbnb. I get the private tours.
No private tours. And I paused Airbnb until it cools down a little bit, because it's just so freaking hot out there. Nobody wants to come to the farm in this heat.
But they can come on your market days.
They can come on market days. So we run Wednesdays 3 to 7, Sundays 1 to 4. As for pre-orders, you can find us at dancinggoatdairy.com or on the Facebook page, where I just released a statement this morning on this issue, The Dancing Goat. It's at Dancing Goat Dairy. It's The Dancing Goat on Facebook.
Okay. All right, everybody. Don't forget also, you can send me real mail, P.O. Box 3355, Denellen, Florida, 34432. Thanks for everybody that sends the cards, notes of encouragement, tips for the show, seeds for the garden, and that's all I got. Appreciate it. It was good to see you, Pam. Thanks for taking the time.
Always a pleasure, Allison.
All right, everyone. See you next time. Have a good week.
Bye-bye.